Hi, AppSec engineers. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the three things that I want to learn personally in the first quarter of the year 2023. Now, one of the things that I need to do, especially because I teach and do a lot of building and creating myself, I need to keep learning new things, and I love learning new things. And this is just a way for me to figure something new out, especially as the new year starts. So, these are the three things that I'm going to be learning in the first quarter of the year 2023. Let's get started. Before we get into it, I want to explain how I learn things. For me, learning is a very hands-on and interactive process, which is why I have even created AppSec Engineer, and AppSec Engineer essentially mirrored, my own thinking because I want to keep things as hands-on as possible. I want to take up as many projects as possible. I want to build as many projects as possible. So this is going to be a very hands-on kind of an experience as far as I'm concerned, and that's how I learn things as well. When I learn new things, the first thing I do is I start with hands-on, and then I figure out the theory along the way, rather than go, okay, I'm going to read everything about this and then get started with an implementation around it. My approach is typically implementation first, and then everything else follows. So I like that. It works for me. I know it works for a lot of you as well who I've interacted with on AppSec Engineer, but some of you may or some of you may not like it. But my approach is really implementation first, and then theory to start supporting the implementation to go deeper and deeper into that specific subject. So this is my approach to learning. And with that, let's get started with the first thing I want to learn in the first quarter, that is January, February, March of 2023. First thing that I want to focus in this particular quarter and get some real hands-on skills is something that I've been working on in the last quarter as well. So I started working on this in November of 2022, but I think I need to spend a little bit more time to get deeper and deeper into this. So I have some background knowledge, but I want to get deeper into this area, and that is eBPF, or the Extended Berkeley Packet Filter. Now, eBPF is a technology where you can write code that runs in the kernel, and this code allows you to essentially instrument any call that happens against the kernel. So your applications are typically calling the kernel to do certain things, and by using eBPF, you can either measure them for performance, or you can do security things with them, or you can do network packet crafting and shaping things with them. You can do a whole bunch of things with eBPF code. Now, what I want to start doing, and what I've already started to do, is use eBPF tools to be able to define my own security implementations or runtime security implementations using eBPF. I've already started looking at projects like Tetragon, and Falco, of course, is something that I've already been working with for a very long time, but more Tetragon and Tracy from Aquasec, so that I can actually get deeper and deeper into eBPF. And after that, I also want to start exploring some low-level tools to help me understand eBPF at a much deeper level after I finish some of these slightly higher abstraction tools that I have. I'm really looking forward to learning this and publishing not just a whole bunch of material on this, but also create some courses on AppSec Engineer with eBPF as a focus area in mind. eBPF is becoming a big thing, especially in the area of cloud native security, because it is replacing some older paradigms like sidecar containers and things like that. It's becoming really powerful in the way we manage runtime security, especially for container workloads on the cloud. So I'm really looking forward to learning eBPF and getting deeper into eBPF in the first quarter of 2023. The next thing I want to learn on my list of things to learn in the first quarter of 2023 is WebAssembly. Now, WebAssembly is something that I had experimented with a couple of years ago and forgotten about it. But my interest has recently been piqued because WebAssembly has now started to be used in cloud native environments. In fact, as an alternative to containers themselves. So WebAssembly was basically, initially when they created WebAssembly, it was basically to be able to run the non-JavaScript code in a JavaScript runtime. So for instance, you can create some intensive Go application or Python data science application and run it inside the browser with a WebAssembly runtime. So it would get compiled to a WebAssembly runtime, and then you can run that code inside of the browser, like Java applets without all the crap that comes with Java applets. So that was really what WebAssembly started off as being. But today, WebAssembly runtimes can be embedded in any operating system or any virtualized environment. So that's one of the big benefits of using WebAssembly, because apparently it's not only much easier to work with, but it's also much faster to run containers and so on. So it's becoming another way of durable and consistent packaging that applications can be run as supposedly a lot more secure. Of course, I have to validate all of these claims as I get understanding WebAssembly a lot better. But I'm really looking forward to learning WebAssembly simply because today I feel the use cases for WebAssembly have expanded quite a bit. And I think that is going to give me a lot more things that I can do with WebAssembly and a lot more things that I can teach with WebAssembly as well. So I'm really looking forward to not only learning WebAssembly, but perhaps in the third quarter of the year, even come out with some material and courses and hands-on labs in AppSec Engineer on WebAssembly. So this is something that I'm looking forward to learning in the first quarter of 2023. The last thing that I want to learn in the first quarter of the new year in 2023 is SPIFFE, or the Secure Production Identity Framework for Everyone. Now, SPIFFE, again, that sounds like a lot. That acronym sounds like a lot, and it is a lot in the sense that SPIFFE is meant to be a workload identity framework. It allows you to identify and authenticate workloads. Now, most of us typically understand paradigms of user authentication because you have a user, that user either uses a username, password, or a certificate, or what have you, to be able to authenticate to a system. It's a very human process. But in the world of microservices, especially where you have multiple services that are discovering services at runtime and trying to figure out what those services are and whether they can trust them. How do services trust other services? And that's really one of the key questions that we have to ask ourselves. What if one service is pretending to be another service and it automatically is able to establish itself as a trusted component inside, let's say, a Kubernetes cluster or a cloud environment or a bunch of distributed systems, and just starts to behave as a legitimate service inside one of these environments? And that happens quite a lot. In fact, a lot of the Kubernetes attacks that I have seen and we've also experimented on as labs really rely on setting up a compromised Kubernetes API server or something like that, that appears or pretends to be something with legitimacy and authenticity that people just like assume and trust and just start using it. So how do we establish identity and trust in microservices and distributed computing environment? And that is something SPIFFE is supposed to be able to solve. Now, I have some very high level knowledge of SPIFFE and how it works, but I've really not gotten into the weeds. This was something that I heard of probably a year and a half ago, but I've not really gotten down to experimenting with it because it was something that I had other priorities, and this was something I kind of put on the back burner. But as I get into it, I think workloads and APIs and other services that need to authenticate with other services need to have some kind of an identity-based framework, and SPIFFE is supposed to have very comprehensive tools to help you solve this problem. They have something called Trust Anchor and things like that. They use PKI at some level to do whatever they do. But what I want to understand personally is, how do they do it? How can you use it? And how can you actually implement it in the real world? In fact, I think there was a blog by Square, of course now called Block, where they've used SPIFFE to do workload identification and authentication in AWS workloads with AWS YDC and so on. So it's quite an interesting approach that they've used. I want to recreate a very similar thing, and I want to be able to understand it in depth by implementing things myself with SPIFFE and their accompanying tool set, which is called Spire. Now, I'm really looking forward to learning SPIFFE because of this. And this is my third thing that I want to learn in the first quarter of 2023. One of the things that you might have noticed is, why only set quarterly goals? Why not set goals for the entire year? And I feel that quarterly goals personally have made a better difference for me. In fact, if you can set it at a lower threshold, even a monthly goal or a weekly goal, I would say is greater than actually a longer threshold, simply because your focus tends to be a lot better when you're setting smaller goals at shorter time intervals. That's my personal opinion. That's my personal read on the situation. So that's what I like to do. I don't like setting a whole year's goals because things change a lot. My direction changes, my interests might change, and of course the interests of the market might change as well. So I don't personally like to commit myself to a year-long goal. I rather commit myself to a quarter goal and see how I've done, and then maybe tweak it for the next quarter and so on. So I intend to do this every quarter, and I intend to also report on how my learning is going quarter to quarter, or even month to month if I'm able to do it. So this is something that I want to do, and that's the reason I have chosen the first quarter to focus on these three things. And maybe I'll do something else in the next quarter. Maybe I'll do follow-up work related to the same things in the next quarter, but that again is yet to be seen or remains to be seen. So that's what I have for you. These are the three things that I want to learn in the first quarter of 2023. I hope this was useful to you. I hope that some of these things are maybe something you want to learn. Let me know what you want to learn in the first quarter of the year or throughout the year as well in the comments. It's very useful to know what other people want to do as well. And please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. It will help us produce more awesome content like this for you that will help you become a better AppSec engineer. Thanks so much. Have a good one, AppSec engineers. See you.